Gentlemen, good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
What's going on?
Guys.
Anything happening before we get started? Do you have going on?
Nothing for
Nothing
me.
that I can talk about. Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, you know what? Considering the fact that I am really interested to get into this, I'm going to go ahead and say, as we always say, here we go again. The Discussing Network presents Discussing Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Kyle Jones, and I want to start this week by welcoming back Clarence Brown. Mr. Brown, how are you?
Doing pretty good, man. And as always, as we say weekly, glad to be on with you guys. It is true, though. I'm really glad to be on with you guys to talk about Doctor Who.
Well, you know, I've just been editing our last two episodes, the most recent, and one week you had a commitment that made you not be with us for the entire time, and the other time you were a little bit under the weather. So let me just say, your voice right now is music to mine ears. So very nice to hear you as well as see you if you're watching us on video. But as always, awesome to hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Good point.
And someone else I enjoy hearing, you know, one person that I have been quoted as saying before, when I grow up, I want to sound like this person, Mr. Lee Shackelford. Lee, how are you?
Very good. But I don't have official show art of me, and you do.
Ooh.
Yeah. So Harold Katz
What
is
show
here.
words?
Oh, the Oz 9. There's even I assume
Oh.
eventually there'll be a lapel pin of narrator 2. So
That would be cool.
wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
Anyway.
But then again, some things, you know, like gold, what is it, gold lame stretch pants?
Yes.
You know, there's only so much gold lame to go around.
Right. It could be a
So
problem.
just saying. And if
Yeah,
you're
I think-
wondering what in the heck
world
we're
we're talking
talking
about.
about, check out oz-9.com or the Oz 9 podcast on your favorite podcast player. And just a big shout out to our friend Shannon Perry, the creator of Oz 9. So, gentlemen, I want to get into some news, but before I do that, since we're so very close to the finale, I want to go ahead and say, if you have not seen the story and the engine, put us on pause, go out, watch the episode, come back, because from this moment forward, spoilers. Alrighty, the spoiler warning has gone out, and
We gotta
I want
retire
to
the
talk.
WandaVision joke, right?
The what now?
We got to retire the WandaVision joke, right?
I know, but somebody actually requested to have that back.
Oh, that's true.
That
Yeah.
maybe we can, you know, kind of go back and forth. You know, have
Oh.
different, and
Yeah.
you know, maybe just on certain things. And Harold Katz knows what we're talking about. Where's
Does.
Pluto?
Yeah.
Cool, Harold. That is
Yeah.
very cool. And when Grace
Cha-ching.
wants us to tell us a story, so
will.
I do have a story. We have some news, and the story that I have in the news is the final episode of this season will be simulcast. It will not be released early on iPlayer and Disney Plus. It will be simulcast in theaters and on Disney Plus and on iPlayer and terrestrial BBC One at the same time. Thoughts about why this finale might be simulcast? Because I don't think the finale last year was simulcast.
No.
Regeneration? Is that what we're saying
I was
here?
going to say, we don't want people sharing pictures of the 16th Doctor. That's why. I-
So do we think that we have come to the end of the 15th? Thoughts?
If the rumors are true, but who knows if the rumors
Yeah.
are true?
rumors are rumors.
Yeah, I could actually see an exit at the end of this season, but man, I think we'd want at least one more season with Shooty, but by all indications, it looked like it might be the end.
Lee, what do you think?
Who knows? And I wanted another I wanted
Yeah.
another Jody too, but you know,
You know, I wish, as much as I enjoy the Disney Plus extra that we have on there, and whenever I say extra, I'm talking about the expanded budget. It looks cool and everything, and I know that there was a set amount of episodes allegedly that they could produce during this arrangement. I almost harken back to the original run of RTD whenever it was just the BBC, because it felt like he had so much more time to actually pull out the story and like really get into the story. Thoughts?
no, very true, and so shows like World War III, episodes from the first season didn't feel like they were going to run the whole franchise aground. They're just, that's
Yeah.
just not a favorite of mine. I just, I shouldn't use that as an example of who at its worst. But I just mean, if there were only 8 episodes and that two-parter was 2 of them, so.
Yeah. Clarence, what do you think?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
We-
you were
we-
comparing it to the previous run.
Yes.
Really, no thought specifically. I just see myself wanting more time, and if I'm comparing it to the amount of episodes we're getting, I do think this season it seems like we're getting a bit more. I haven't seen any dud episodes so far, or ones that I don't want to go back or wouldn't go back and watch so far. So I mean, I think this season's been strong enough, but yeah.
I've seen a lot of rumors going around, and at this point, I think rumors are speculation. And I really, maybe as we get a little bit closer to the finale, we can speculate on what's going to happen next week or something to that effect. But, I know we've talked about just now, will we get a regeneration? That's, I guess, speculation. So I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. That said, I want to get into the story for why we're here. So this is the story and the engine, and it is the 5th episode of the 2025 series of Doctor Who, first airing/streaming on the 10th of May, 2025. It stars Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor, Verita Sethu as Belinda Chandra, and sees the return of Joe Martin as the fugitive Doctor. So summary view, Clarence, I have to start with you because you made a comment this weekend that made me curious of what you thought. Summary view, what say ye?
Oh man, I think it's a wait and see for me. I think definitely on my second viewing, I loved it much more. Barbershop Under Siege, I guess. It's an interesting story, but I don't know if it resonated with me in the same way that I've been hearing that it's resonating with everyone else. So I think from my point of view, I need to get some feedback from you guys to see what it is that if you do like it, what it is that sparks an interest. There's certainly elements of it that can appeal to the Doctor Who fan, like, oh, that's some touchstones that is going back and going to. There are some comparisons that I can offer a little later on to real world that we can talk about a bit. But overall, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I guess I found myself trying to understand it. And if there was a bigger message that I was missing on my first viewing.
All right. Lee, what say you?
Like last week, I found myself just riveted that I felt like I couldn't look away from the screen. And that's a wonderful feeling. And just really enjoyed being along for the ride. It's funny because once again, we're in that land of a god, or at least a pretender, a convincing pretender.
Yeah.
And with that idea that because I am who I am, I can do anything. And we were just talking recently about how I often feel like, well, that's boring because I don't know. Um, but I found this all very interesting, and of course I'm going to be a sucker for a story where story is the center of the story. It just I really like that device that the guys have to tell a story, whether they want to or not. But they also want to, and I, I don't know. I just thought that's an interesting paradigm right there. And the Doctor kind of wins the game by being so full of stories. I don't know. I just thought it's just very interesting all around. That's my one word answer. Interesting. What
All
about
right.
you?
All right. So for me, this was one of those episodes where when I sit down to watch it, I find myself immediately engrossed in the story and I don't let up until the very end. And of course, both of you know me, and anybody listening to this podcast who's listened to it at any point of any time frame pretty much knows that there was one point that I'm like clapping my hands in excitement
Yes.
because I'm like, yes, I didn't know this was happening. And yes. So, that alone made me like the episode. But even without that, I thought that this gave an opportunity to showcase cultural differences and the differences of the Doctor, but do it whereas not in a negative route, and as we've usually seen with the Doctor Who companion pairing and any racism, it's usually in a negative connotation. I love the cultural switch of that and acknowledging that this body is different from previous incarnations, but using it as I interpreted it, in a positive light. So I really, really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed everything about this episode. And Clarence, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of us, but I tried to take what I know of you and what your comment was about having to think it through and whatnot. And I was like, I bet I know where it fell apart for him. And feel free to comment on this. Some of the things that may have, and Lee, this may be you too. How do stories fuel a space spider or whatever it is? Was that it?
Not necessarily, because I think I can almost buy that. And quite honestly, for some reason, he mentions Loki in this when he gives a little "I'm a God" spiel. It reminded me of the Loki, the Ventrium. What was it called in that series, where they were trying to tie the universes together?
Yes.
For some reason, it reminded me of that a lot. But I think I bought the idea of the power of a story. If you've ever fancied a barbershop in your day, especially in black barbershops, I don't know about in Lagos, but definitely in America, the barbershop is a place where people, chat, gossip, and tell stories. So that part really resonated with me a lot. But I think I was more so, and maybe it gets to the point of what you were saying, more so trying to find the angle of spinning the nexus and how that all intertwines exactly with gaining power to actually topple the gods, so to speak.
Lee, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm Clarence. That didn't bug me, and I wonder if it's because we've encountered beings who live on fear, or ideas like that. So running a ship on the power of story didn't seem like that wild a stretch. Because I'd be the last person to argue that stories don't have power.
And
But,
it didn't bother me. I mean, I actually wondered, and maybe I'm thinking too deep into it, but I was thinking from the context, maybe this is, and meta may not be the right word that I'm looking for, but I'm going to go with it, that the meta of this was stories have power, and power is fuel, And think of how we listen to the news, and whether you're listening to news outlet A or news outlet B or news outlet C, each of them have their own flavor of the news. Therefore, it fuels a certain mindset and belief, and that fuels actions. So, I mean, I know I'm stretching it far here, but
I don't think
technically
so.
that is fuel to make movement. It, so I thought that was how the fuel was used as a way of making a commentary without making a commentary, or slyly making a commentary.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. And I know that RTD didn't write this one, but a lot of these, there's aspects of these last few episodes that feel almost autobiographical or confessional or something, or, the showrunner trying to make a statement. And here, once again, kind of like in Lux, here is the storyteller telling us, or maybe the showrunner telling us that story is what matters,
Mm.
and it's at the center of what we do. That could be talking about making Doctor Who or whatever, but
And we've even used and made reference to this podcast. We're telling a story.
we are.
We're telling our interpretation of what we watched and weaving it. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an ending. So it is a story. So tell me about the idea of the barber and this person who is using this screen, as I will call it, to interpret stories visually. Either one of you, take it away. Lee?
Not sure. Well, I think he's the barber only because this is the barbershop.
Okay.
The what matters here is this is a place where people get together to swap stories. And so he takes advantage of that. And that's why he has to be or become the barber. It's a good thing he's good at it, or it wouldn't work. Because he's good. Yeah.
All right, Clarence, what did you think?
Exactly what Lee said. I think they made a comparison when he was giving out off his "I'm a God" speech. He mentioned confessionals, and he mentioned a bunch of more things. But that's another engine with that, another place. Excuse me. That people tend to dish out stories about their lives. So I like that they kind of tied it in. Okay, it's not just a barbershop. When I went out on this quest to consume all these stories to power my engine, I went to all these different places, and maybe there's another room in the spider ship that goes to confessional or goes to some other place that we didn't see. So
There's plenty of room in there.
yeah, there is.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think of the idea that he had these people captured and they're telling their story, but we see this viewfinder? How did you guys like the way we were seeing in this picture on the wall thing?
I love that. I love the visual style of people's stories, and frankly, wanted to see more of that. But I just thought that was lovely. Yeah.
Clarence, what did you think?
I thought it was interesting. It may have been a nice budget cost cutting thing too as well. Because you notice when they did Belinda's, they showed the live action footage. They didn't show like the animated screen like they did for the others. But I did like it. I thought it was nice. I thought it looked pretty cool. And I guess even when they showed the doctor, when he gave his story at the end, they showed real footage too. But anyway, I did like it when they did show it. I thought it was well done and interesting. when we see the first story when he's talking about the doctor, I thought that was really cool as well. So I think it worked well with the overall aesthetic of the episode.
And one thing that was really interesting, because if you really didn't pay attention to it, it was a blink and you missed. But with the opening credits, we see the opening credits through the window as well.
It started on,
That in itself was really cool. And our friend Tasha just joined us. Win Grace, by the way, is already in the chat. But Tasha says the barbershop is the best place for stories. And that is true. Beauty shop, barbershop, either one, best place for stories.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what we saw in Belinda's story. And to me, I'll go ahead and make my comment first. This was a completely dropped in scene that was totally unnecessary. And part of that scene, I loved her scene, but the part of her scene that I say is totally unnecessary, Mrs. Flood was not needed in that scene. She served no purpose. It did not elaborate any more on who Mrs. Flood is. Unnecessary. Would you agree?
Just checking in.
He was just checking in
Just
to
checking
say Mrs. Flood is in every episode.
Oh, well, see, this is what we call tokenism, because she is one of two white people in this story.
And that
So-
just
Is this the most
negated.
black people in a Doctor Who episode?
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Well, I mean, it feels like in some ways it's the elephant in the room. I mean, classic Who was almost oppressively white, right?
It was, no, you ready for this? It was
Yeah.
flooded with
It
white
was
people.
flooded with whiteness. But
Yes.
and what an interesting moment for the history of the show to have a show that has two people in flashback who are the only white people in the story.
Interesting.
And you know, and I know that there are people who will say, when did Doctor Who get so woke? Who say, oh, now everybody's got to be black. We're in Nigeria. Deal with it. This story takes place in Lagos. What do you, you know? And of course, you could tell this story anywhere.
Yeah, it was a result of where the location,
Yeah.
which
So
I
that's
thought was,
that's a choice. They chose to set it in Lagos, but so what? So it's just I don't know. And you know, you were talking about the role of the barbershop in black culture. I think it has changed in white culture. I'm old enough to remember when I was a little boy and had hair, for one thing. But when I was a little boy, it was still that time when guys hung out in the barber shop. I remember being put up in the chair and having to sit on the booster seat. And the conversations going on around me clearly had nothing to do with me, because, you know, here's the little kid here, so let's keep it clean. But I just remember being intrigued by this place where clearly most people had just come in there to hang out.
yeah.
And I don't think not having hair on my head has changed things, I suppose. But I don't know if it has that role in white culture the way I remember, 50 years ago that it did.
I think you're very right in the sense of and I'm not speaking for, African American or black culture, but I do agree with you. I don't know of a barbershop that is a white, quote unquote, barbershop. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. You still,
Oh boy, I know some.
Well,
I'm in Fort Worth, of course, and there's more stylish, like upscale type barbershops. There's barbershops here that are all girls. I forgot what the name of it is. They definitely play on it, play on that theme a little bit here with barbershops. But yeah, I actually, it's hard for me to find a black barbershop here, to be honest. Yeah, but I'm in Fort Worth though.
But those are called styling salons.
Yes,
If it's
salons.
If it's for the Tony white guys. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know, but still, what a great call to tell this story in a barbershop and to set it in Nigeria, and so all those cultural touchstones get touched at once. And the guy who is the African guy who is an athlete right? That's
Yeah.
almost a stereotype itself. But we're already on his side the minute he says, "Oh, let him get out of here. We can let him run," you know. And I
Well,
just,
well, I don't know if this says anything about me, but, and I'm not going to speculate what it says about me, but I actually had a note in here, and this is how much I didn't pay attention to Miss Flood and the other character was this. My exact note was, this is the first episode of Doctor Who, to my knowledge, to not feature a Caucasian character on screen. I had totally forgotten, quote unquote, that patient and Mrs. Flood were in the
Yeah.
episode. I just kind of
Right. And we're not counting the doctor's sort of
Yeah, the mini
flashback
doctors.
No,
doctors.
Yeah.
no, no.
But
So, what did you guys think of Belinda's contribution of being left in the TARDIS and hearing the alarms? I've never heard TARDIS alarms before.
yeah, it wasn't the cloister bell. This was
No,
Red
this was a
alert.
wah wah wah
yeah, it
wah
was red
wah
alert.
wah.
Yeah, it was- right. So, and it drove her out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved how she was speaking to the TARDIS. TARDIS,
Yes.
where? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I like the idea of the red alert in the TARDIS. I thought it was cool. Yeah, and I like that it was reacting to temporal / spatial anomalies outside of the TARDIS. Is kind of was I guess it was giving an alert to that because every time the door opened, it went off. So it noticed something in the vicinity that was going kind of crazy.
Oh, you know what it was? You know how with newer cars, if you get too close to something, it starts doing that beep, 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 or giving some type of warning. That was it had gotten too close to a temporal anomaly,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll buy that.
So when she is leaving out and she's going through the market, I just want to give a nod real quick. She meets up with a vendor who's trying to sell her something. She knocks something over and he says something to her. That is the writer of the episode.
That is.
Oh, that's
Hugh
cool.
Alens.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Making him one of 4 people who have written and appeared on screen.
Yeah.
Written for the show and
Yep.
appeared
So
on camera in that. Yeah.
that was very, very cool. But as she is entering or getting ready to enter the barbershop, do you guys remember of course she's in this alley and she's standing alone, and there's this little girl in the alley and she turns away and the little girl is gone. Any thoughts about the spooky little girl before I give my thoughts?
No idea. She does ask the doctor who's the child, and he equated it to some of the temporal energy, or he had another name for it, bleeding through the barbershop, escaping from the barbershop. But beyond that, I have no idea.
Well, I
who
do,
it could be.
and let's make it quick before someone in the chat says anything. Lee, any thoughts from you before I?
No, I just thought it was a big question mark. So
Well, let me tell you, we have seen this child before, and in the credits, it names the child, and I will tell you who this person is. Her credit is Poppy, as in Captain Poppy, the space baby.
What?
In the credits, it is the same child, and it is in the credits, the child is credited as Poppy.
Isn't
So
that
this is
the dumbest thing I've ever heard?
a
Maybe
space
not.
baby.
I don't know. Talk me down.
no, I'm with Clarence. Why?
I'm just telling you, and I will say this: Anita Dobson, who plays Mrs. Flood, was making a comment in an interview right before the season starts, and she does make reference to space babies.
Oh God.
So, would it not be interesting that the episode that we said, "Oh, why did you do this episode?" is central to the reveal at the end.
Well, wouldn't that be grand?
Yes, that's right.
I'm just saying that you go and you look at the credits, and in the
Okay.
credits, that baby is
Poppy.
referenced as
Sure.
Poppy.
Alrighty.
There you go. All right. So let me ask next up, we have Abby, who is in, of course, the barbershop, and we find out that she is the daughter of Anansi. And the doctor is talking to her about not being there and not being there for her. And I think this was very clever in how they did this, because I actually stopped when the doctor said at the beginning about having, he said, this is the first time that I've had a black body.
He contradicted himself in this episode.
And I'm like, whoa. And we had to walk through that, because I'm like, how is that possible? He may not remember being the fugitive, but 13 met the fugitive. So therefore, he knows about the fugitive. How can he say he's never had a body that wasn't Caucasian before?
Yeah.
I think that the 13th, when they were the 13th Doctor, they were not convinced that that was for real. Does that make sense? I think that the whole timeless child thing was so confusing and mind-blowing. Like, maybe this couldn't have been a past life of mine. I would have remembered. And so maybe now the Doctor is saying, I haven't been black before, that I recall.
I like that as an end story explanation. That makes sense. I also kind of looked at it as maybe that was just a red herring to make people be not expecting to see the fugitive doctor, and then about 20 minutes later, here she comes.
Though. That I don't like
Yeah.
that. Lie to me so you can surprise me.
I was surprised. I was happy, but I was surprised.
I was surprised, but I immediately said, "Oh, didn't he just say he's never been black before?" but of course we knew he's been black before. I mean, but I got to go with Lee's thoughts. Maybe he doesn't quite remember, because he does have a problem remembering Abby at the beginning. So maybe he knows, but still doesn't completely believe it until
That's
this
right.
moment. Maybe.
Yeah.
But there's someone in the chat, Baby J, who says, but then he pulls on the future doctor's, pulls on the fugitive doctor's memories. So maybe even though the 13th Doctor didn't use the watch to restore the memories like she could have, maybe it was starting to bleed over, because he's met someone now that the fugitive met previously.
Maybe.
I'm
And-
going to say that only worked in this instance because of his proximity to the story engine. How about that?
There you go.
There you go.
I buy it. It's bleeding through.
And Tasha asked, why did he need the black barber in Nigeria if he had never been black? He makes a reference to not even needing a haircut. I understood that this incarnation chose that for companionship, not for the actual cut itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when they tell the story of him saving the village with the fire, from the fire with his hose out the TARDIS, which that's awesome. That I think that's when he initiates this relationship that he found himself coming back to, because he was around people that looked like him and was accepting of him, whereas he found other places, because now being in this new body that he had never been in before, he was treated a little bit differently, or he had to, I guess, walk a little bit differently. I really like that. But I also found that even in the midst of all of that, he did run up against a bit of rejection, sort of like, I found a lot of compare or similarities to like the story of the greatest story ever told. you know, and and uh, how Jesus was rejected among his own a little bit, and the doctor got a little taste of that, not purposely, but more so they were using him as ends to a means to an end in this episode a bit. So I found a lot of comparisons to like the greatest story ever told.
Mm, very good point. Lee, what do
Uh-huh.
you think?
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting angle on it. He's once again willing to sacrifice himself to save everybody else.
Yeah.
That's a doctor characteristic, but yeah,
Mm.
part of the big story.
And I enjoyed seeing anger from the 15th Doctor. We've often made comments about how this incarnation, especially in the last series, was mostly portrayed as so happy and so, you know, happy go lucky. I'm enjoying seeing a range of emotion that I know this actor has, that he's not been given, because think of Matt Smith's Doctor. He was one of the youngest actors at the time to play the Doctor, but to me, he could go from this childlike wonder to this face that looked ancient, within, just a drop of a dime, as they say. So I really enjoyed seeing him anger, showing emotion. I enjoyed seeing the tears in the eyes, but not a tear fall. I loved that.
Yeah.
All right, so gentlemen, I'm coming to the end of my notes, and I know both of you had things that you guys wanted to bring up. Lee, I'll start with you. Any other items on your list that we have not brought up yet?
Even though it is so well worn since 1963, I always enjoy it when the doctor casually lets drop that he knows somebody famous from our past and that he's got a personal relationship with them. So, as a writer, I have always known the story of Hemingway's challenge to write a story with 6 words, and that it was allegedly a bet. Now we know it was a bet with the doctor, predictably. So I love that. Do you know Hemingway's 6-word story?
I do not.
It's to me it is brilliant because it points to the very thing about story that works for us as human beings. That it's not just about the words, but about the implications of the words in their arrangement in the story. The story has to be much, much bigger than the mere words. So Hemingway's response to that challenge was, for sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, doesn't it? But why? It's just 6 words. Oh man, though. Yeah.
Wow.
So this episode includes the challenge to tell your story in 6 words. So I think that's an interesting takeaway from this story.
Mm.
And the doctor's answer is, I'm born. I die. I'm born. That's his 6-word story. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Clarence, anything else on your list?
I have a few. We have the moment where Abina braids the doctor's hair, and that's supposed to be a map to get to the core of the engine. I don't know. I looked this up. I'd never heard that before. You think I would hear it at least, And maybe it just what didn't happen in American culture, but it almost seems like, clever writing. But was it something that people made up nowadays that he's doing there? I don't know, man. I don't know about that one. Maybe somebody can give me a definitive answer if that's real or just a bunch of malarkey, as Biden would say. But yeah, I didn't like that. So I like the idea of there's a guy trying to become the supreme collector supreme and topple the gods. I guess we could talk about that, like the implication of toppling the gods and how it wouldn't allow the humanity to exist in the form that it exists now. That's just an interesting thing to ponder and think about. Yeah, so I really like that aspect of the episode. And also the thing, and Cal, I know you're probably going to talk about it, but the fugitive doctor, in the notion that those stories might be yet to be told. I've heard rumblings that maybe that's what the regeneration is going to be, but that's neither. I guess that's just speculation or whatever. But I think it would be interesting to see those stories told, as she kind of hinted at in that little vision.
Yeah, I was wondering as she said it exactly what you just said, but also if that was a plug for Big Finish, because her adventures are just now starting on Big Finish. That could be, that could be the case. Who knows? But I'm just so happy, and I thought this was such a great episode, to be honest.
So Tasha says that the braiding the hair thing was real, but I don't point me somewhere. I believe you. I need to research it.
Yes, Snopes says we can't prove it one way or the other. That it's a very widespread and compelling story, but they said we just don't have a solid proof. But why not? Why not?
Yeah,
it seems credible to me.
Yeah.
Very handy if you're in a maze in this episode. That's when it's really useful. But.
All right. Any other items from you, Clarence?
I think that pretty much covers it. And I guess the doctor, like I mentioned earlier, the doctor is the greatest. The story of the doctor is the greatest story that ever told. I guess we're reframing that in this this episode.
But who knows? I have become such a fan of the Eighth Doctor because of Big Finish. So if that was the intent of what she said, then I'm happy with that, because that keeps Doctor Who out there. So if it's hey, here comes Big Finish, or if there's something that we don't know about yet that's planned, whether it's a regeneration, whether it's a one-off special, whatever the case may be, it's new Doctor Who. And, it's sci-fi, it's fantasy, whatever you want to call it. I'm just glad we're watching Doctor Who.
And it makes sense. If this is the episode all about stories, it would make sense that they would plug Big Finish as another outlet to get more Doctor Who stories.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. All right. So that leads us into our favorite scene. And Lee, I want to start with you. Favorite scene?
Well, I found the hair braiding thing intriguing enough, incredible enough, that I really liked that whole idea, and I liked the Doctor following the map through the maze on the top of his head. I just really liked the way that was played on screen, and he likes it. So that's my favorite scene.
All right. Clarence, what say you?
Adrian mentions it as being hilarious, but I actually liked it because it was a little bit funny to me. Is the rapid hair growing? As soon as you get your fresh cut, man, can't get out the chair good enough. Your hair done grow back. Like, bruh. I thought it was pretty cool.
So does anybody want to know what my favorite scene was?
The Fugitive Doctor.
The what?
The Fugitive Doctor.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite scene. Yeah. That got a verbal, physical reaction with me clapping and was like, yes. So, I was grinning from ear to ear for that 10-second cameo. So, I will lead into our favorite quote, which was, believe it or not, I was a fugitive back then, and Nancy was wrong to offer you that bet. And frankly, darling, I was busy in a different story that might be finished one day. Favorite quote from Kyle. So there you go. All right. Favorite quote. Lee, what was your favorite quote?
Hurt people hurt people. True dat.
Indeed. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Clarence Brown, what say ye?
I'm born, I die. Yeah.
All right. All right. So I'm glad both of you said those because I was hoping that the I'm born, I die was included anything. So I want to get into our final rating. Clarence, I want to start with you. Final rating.
Man, I've struggled with this one because I was in the middle of the road when I first watched this, like completely in the middle. But I think it definitely was more fun on the second watching for me, second viewing. So I'm probably gonna go about a 3.8. Spiders roaming along the Nexus out of 5.
All right. Lee.
I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 electric clippers.
Okay. I'm going to give this 4.25 fugitive cameos out of 5. So there you go.
I'm sorry, I'm reading Adrian's comment. Trap for eternity in a barbershop where you could never get a trim. And it keeps going back. That's a certain type of hell, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what that's called, Adrian? Return customers. That's what that's called.
Job security.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Yes.
You
Harold
know,
gives
I know people who, want to keep a clean shaven face, but their beards grow so fast that they literally have to shave twice a day.
Oh wow.
So yeah, they already live in that hell. So
Jeez Louise.
yeah.
All right, so Harold gives it 3.75 clippers out of 5. And I want to thank everyone in the chat. We've had several people in the chat, some new to us that's never been with us before. Thank you so much for joining us. We are glad that you are here with us.
Yeah.
We will be back next week for a new episode, which is the Interstellar Song Competition, the 803rd version of the Interstellar Song Competition. And rumor has it it's going to be an episode that will change Doctor Who forever.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not excited.
You may be.
How many times have we said that, though?
I don't know.
And sometimes it's true. Yeah.
So, with that being said, thanks everyone in the chat again. Thanks everyone who are now listening to us on the audio version of the podcast. And as always, we will be back next time.